There are a lot actually, but I'll pick one or two to elaborate on. Because I have a communication background, so I'm interested in not only oral tradition, I'm also interested in music, especially music that send messages. And one of the oldest generation of that, especially in Hausa land, is what they call Rubutattun Wakokin Hausa. These are Hausa songs that are written and then they are rendered just like poets render their writings and things like that. There are people who have made name in that. They write and they render them. And they also render those written by other people. Now, one of these people, I'll just take one of them that have really made a lot of them, both in Nigeria and outside Nigeria, is a guy called Abubakar Ladan Zaria. He's late now, but his has become the most popular and the most widely listened to Rubutattun Wakokin Hausa. And those Rubutattun Wakokin Hausa actually are used to send different messages. There are messages either of societal values, political issues, like most of Ladan Zaria's Rubutattun Wakokin Hausa became very famous because they talk about African countries, their struggle towards independence and all these things. And the interesting thing about it that he captured different cultural things about almost all the countries in Africa, both those that were independent and those that were under colonialism at that time. We were talking about, I wasn't there, but it's history. We are talking about the late 50s to the early 60s, when most of Africa was struggling to come out of colonialism. And you can also use them to send local messages on healthcare, for example, on what experts are saying about the coming rainy season, for example, the pattern of either planting and things like that, different kind of messages. I see this culture really dying. And this generation is, I understand it's on the fast lane, but at the same time, I was hoping that somehow, especially from the universities, we may have a generation that will come and still hold those and then find a way of making them relevant today. Because honestly, the messages they send are very, very important societal messages. I've listened to Ladan Zaria so much that some of what he said were actually futuristic. So you can say that Ladan Zaria in a way is a legend when it comes to that. Long before South Africa became independent, in his rendering of the African song, he talked about South Africa. Long before the Hutu Tutsi problem, he spoke about that in a way. And one of his music, his Rubutattun Wakokin Hausa, he said that Rwanda da Burundi, dama munganku, agwame kuki. Agwame means like you are together. And then he said, kar ku bari magabta su shiga tsakaninku. Don't allow people, distractors, to come in between you. And that was exactly what happened. They allowed that, and then now is history. And for South Africa, he said, jiniyar 'yanci ta koka a kudancin nan na Africa, mai bacci duka ya farka. That the siren or the music of freedom is blowing in Southern Africa. Those who are sleeping have woken up. Now is the time to do the real struggle. So you can see he picks, and then he talked about corruption also in it. That, okay, now that Africa is emerging as an independent nation, leaders who amass illegal wealth cannot talk about freedom. They cannot talk about working for their people. So all these things that we are struggling with, in Rubutattun Wakokin Hausa, you have a way of putting that message across. The whole idea is the messaging. Now, I don't know what a lot of young people, whether the agency's music actually have some messaging in it, and what that message try to send. What do you want them to do? So I think actually if especially our universities will do additional research on that, and then try and see. And that's why you have universities. That's why you have universities do research. How do we take things that are ancient, modernize them, and then use them for public good? So that's the aspect of the Rubutattun Wakokin Hausa. So close to it, there is, because I want to be gender balanced, there is one that I don't know how to put it in English, but all Hausa speakers know. Is kiɗan ƙwarya. Kiɗan ƙwarya is mostly rendered by women. They put water in big holes and then they put calabashes in it, and they will be hitting it and then singing. And they send a lot of messages also through that. Mostly they target either weddings or naming ceremonies where there are a lot of women will converge and they'll be dancing. It is good music, but it sends also messages. In northern Nigeria, the lady that actually became prominent through that is a lady called Barmani Choge. She speaks about, for example, he said that she talks about women who just stay in their husband's house without doing any form of trade or any form of anything to earn their own independent money, just depending on the husband for practically everything. And she said that is wrong. So this is like part of the messaging. You know, this whole idea that I talked to you is passing important messages for society and messages that will forever remain relevant. So this is it for Rubutattun Wakokin Hausa, and then the kiɗan ƙwarya that are part of Hausa culture that I see it dying, and I hope that universities or somebody should take up the challenge and make them still relevant.